So welcome everyone to our session today. Thank you so much also for kind of signing into this webinar at really short notice here. Like you, we at Tutor.com are trying to react to the time that we are in and meet the needs of the moment. So as I mentioned for today, one of the reasons that we put this session together so quickly, of course, is the same kind of reaction that you and other organizations out in our country are having at this moment, is to figure out what to do given the fact that we have this pandemic that is starting to affect many schools having to close and have to figure out how to move online quickly. So over the past couple weeks at Tutor.com, we have gotten clients calling us about some of these kinds of concerns and needs that they have and figuring out if we have a way that we can help support. So I think the thing that we really want to just reinforce here is that at Tutor.com, we are looking for ways to help support all of you who have to put together some sort of plan for how to react to the moment that we are in and support your students. Some of the things we've been hearing is that schools have been moving online, but now all of a sudden they have to move their whole operation online really quickly. And so figuring out how to do that and do it effectively to support your students, your instructors, other support staff, like advising, for example, and do it quickly and effectively has been a real pain point for some institutions who maybe have some notion of online, but moving everything online is just not quite a reality yet. We also have other partners that are just trying to develop their contingency plans. Maybe you aren't closing campus, but you do need to work up what's your emergency reaction plan. So we can help you in some ways in these kinds of problems that you're seeing, and meeting spaces is one of those opportunities that we wanted to help support. So in addition to meeting spaces, Tutor.com, and I think we put this into the communication we put out to our community, we have prepared to scale up our tutoring operation as well. So if any of you need to send us more students to get online tutoring support, we are prepared to do that across 150 subjects, again, 24/7, so that even if you have to sort of shut down your tutoring centers on campus, they can still get help. We do have the ability to scale and make sure we're there to meet demand. Now, if you want to be able to use some of your tutors on staff that maybe can't come to campus because you have to shut down campus or limit kind of the in-person opportunities, we decided as an organization to offer up Meeting Spaces, our platform, to our clients for free through the duration of 2020 at this point. So I think that's why most of you are on this call today, is to learn what is Meeting Spaces and maybe how can it help you with some of these pain points that some of the institutions we work with are starting to experience. So again, we're here to help, whether that is through this information you get today or through us helping consult with you. Our team is at the ready to help with some of these kinds of needs that you have. Okay, next slide. Just as a refresher course for anyone who maybe got our notice through the grapevine and doesn't know a whole lot about Tutor.com. So today's session is really focused on the pink circle that you see here. Most of you are going to be familiar with what we do for you already, which is one-to-one learning for students, offering you that online option of tutoring support for your students, and that's the primary reason that you use Tutor.com today. You also know the blue circle, for those of you who administrate Tutor.com on campus, is we offer you a lot of reporting about how students are using the services online. Today, and what's kind of new, is the pink circle, where we have been working on over the past year, developing a platform that allows our partners to get into an online environment and have collaboration tools and education tools to have effective academic support sessions using our platform. So that's what we're going to highlight through Meeting Spaces today. Go ahead. So what is Meeting Spaces in the first place? Meeting Spaces is a web conferencing tool that we developed at Tutor.com based on some feedback we got from clients over the past couple years that they needed a place for their students to be able to meet online, for their instructors to be able to meet with students, for their advising and support staff to be able to meet with learners, and sometimes for their tutors who are on campus to be able to deliver online sessions. The difference between our platform and other web conferencing platforms you might be used to is that we designed Meeting Spaces with the learner in mind. And so all of the educational tools that are in the Tutor.com online classroom that you guys know for our tutoring sessions, we've built into the Meeting Spaces platform as well. So it makes it so that students can have a place to collaborate, meet with instructors and peers, but also have access to educational tools so that they can work through educational content. And so that's really where John is going to take over and do some demonstration for you on what that looks like. So let's go to the next slide. So before he goes into the demonstration, we wanted to just give you some thoughts on how we have some clients using Meeting Spaces today, and that it may be an opportunity for you to use this in similar ways. So one is that Meeting Spaces is an opportunity for your faculty or advising team to offer online office hours in our platform. They also can have some notion of online lectures and review sessions if students need to work through particular content and instruction. It can be an opportunity for students, especially as you're being asked to move from campus or do social distancing, I think is the word that is being used. It's for students to be able to meet with each other in peer-to-peer study meetings through the Meeting Spaces platform. There may be opportunities for instructors who need to meet with students or with each other. There's course-specific group discussions that may need to happen, and also some notion of supplemental instruction. So these are just some of the ways that the Meeting Spaces platform is helping to support some of our clients that have been using Meeting Spaces over the past year today, and maybe some application for you at your campus. Before John takes over here, I did want to just mention again, Meeting Spaces is a platform we've been working on over the past year at Tutor.com. We have had a very small group of our clients who have been using it. Some of them may be on this call today. So if you've had Meeting Spaces and this isn't new for you, this is just a refresher course. It has been basically in beta for the past year, and at every moment and opportunity, we are learning and getting feedback to keep evolving and improving this platform. So as we launch this and give this out to all of you for free, we will definitely want to be hearing feedback and learning how it's working or not in certain settings based on the needs that you all have. So I just wanted to make sure that that was very clear to the audience. Okay, John, go ahead and take it away.
Well, good morning or afternoon, everybody, depending on where you are. As Lauren said, we're really excited to offer this product to you all to use to fill in the gaps in all of the different ways that we just discussed. I'm going to kind of walk you through, if you choose to opt in to the Meeting Spaces feature of our service, I'm going to explain and show you how that appears and how you would use that and how that all works. So so when we turn on the Meeting Spaces feature, it appears as a new, in most cases, it'll appear as a new button in your existing tutoring interface. So there's no additional installation that has to occur. It's a feature on the back end that we turn on for you. So you'll see the Join a Meeting Spaces button appear if you opt in to this feature of our service. And you enter into the Meeting Spaces area by you click that button. And once you do that, let me clear these drawings a little bit here. You'll end up on this page here that asks, are you ready to join a meeting space? So there's a couple of different options for joining meeting spaces. You can do an impromptu meeting by just choosing the Join a Meeting Space button here. And that will drop you into a ready-made meeting for students that have come in from the same course. The other option, which you can do in almost real time, is to create a new meeting. And when you create a new meeting, you have the option to set the date and time, invite the participants that you want to participate in the meeting, and so on. So let's go ahead and look at that process. We want to create a new meeting. We give it a title. Give it a start time. And that start time could be now or 5 minutes from now or whenever you want it to be. You give it a duration anywhere in 15-minute increments, from 15 minutes to 90 minutes. And then you invite individuals to the meeting. You just type the first few letters of their name and different options will show up. And so you pick from those options. You can invite instructors and students. And then when you're satisfied that you've set this meeting up in the way that you want to, let's set it to start a little bit later. Shows in your upcoming meetings area. You have the ability to modify that meeting. So if you wanted to change the time or maybe add some new attendees, invite other people, you can click the modify button and modify the meeting. You can also add it to your calendar by clicking on the add to calendar button. What that does is it will pop up the different sort of common calendar formats that are available. So you can add it to your Google Calendar, Yahoo, iCal is the kind of standard format for most calendaring applications, or you can do Outlook specific. And so you can add the meeting to your calendar. And then other items shown here in the meeting spaces area, you can see any invitations that are pending, meetings that you've been invited to. As I mentioned earlier, upcoming meetings that you've scheduled and or have accepted invitations to. A list of all your previous meetings is here as well, so that you can go back and review what your meeting history was. And then in some cases, there's the ability to schedule a meeting according to a calendar. For example, we've loaded some tutoring staff into our system with their schedules. And so students could come in here and look at, okay, what staff members or what tutors are available at your school, and what subjects are they tutoring in, and you can schedule a meeting with any of the individuals that we've set up as tutors in your system. And so when we're ready to connect to our meeting, we hit the launch button here. And that'll bring us into the meeting spaces environment. And so when you first come in, it's going to ask you, your browser is going to ask you if you want to allow your camera and your microphone or whatever audio devices you have, so that you can, in addition to using the chat box, which is over here, you can see Lauren's coming into the meeting now. Shows you all the meeting participants. Lauren's on video now, and I'm going to go ahead and come on to video as well. When you first come into the meeting, you are muted, and muted means audio and video. It mutes both of those options, and so I can unmute myself. And now here I am. The panel, the video pane will show up to 6 participants at a time, but the meeting itself has a capacity of 50 participants. So the video will just sort of rotate through whoever's speaking and interacting in your meeting. And as I mentioned earlier, you have the ability to mute, to turn your video on or off if you don't want the video to be shown, or you don't want to use video for your meeting. So when we land here in the meeting spaces environment, the main part of the frame is our workspace area. And in the workspace area, We can do a variety of things that if you've already seen how the tutoring interface works, it's essentially the same thing. You have students in the meeting spaces environment. Students, learners, faculty, and staff can take a quick tour of the environment by clicking the tour button, and it will just step through all of the features and functions that are here in the meeting spaces workspace area. If you ever want to change the settings, like use a different camera or microphone, you would go into settings to make those changes. I've disabled my microphone so that we don't have an echo because I'm already using it for something else. In the workspace area, we can collaborate with each other. For example, right now, Lauren and I are set up as peers in this meeting. So I could write an equation, and Lauren can also draw in the workspace at the same time. We can change the colors and the thickness and the style of our drawings. We can import a variety of things, including Lauren just put graph paper, a grid on there, so we could use it as graph paper. If we wanted to graph this equation, we can import figures and diagrams and screenshots and other document types by using the import function. And when we have that in the workspace area, again, we can collaboratively draw on it, type on it, mark it up. Other options would be we could add formulas. There's a formula palette that we're growing and building out all the time. We can have multiple workspace areas open. We could add another whiteboard. We could add a slide deck if you wanted to, and we could have these open at the same time. For example, I opened the two-way text editor. Is my draft. We can switch back and forth between the whiteboard and the text editor. There's a code editor as well that does color coding and tab completion and highlighting based upon whatever language or language family that you have selected. For example, if we were doing SQL, this is a comment in SQL. But if I change the language family to something else, this is not correct C code, so it wouldn't know how to interpret that. So that's available, and again, all these workspaces open simultaneously so that we can flip back and forth between all of them. There's a screen sharing option as well, so that the meeting organizer or participants can share their screen. There's also the ability to share files with the participants of the meeting. Down here towards the bottom of the chat, you'll see this little link icon. And if you click the link icon, you'll be able to browse and find pick files from your system so that you can share those files with the group. Other things you can do, there's the option to do breakout rooms. So if you have a large group and maybe you're doing a supplemental instruction session, or you want your class or your lecture group to break out into different groups and study different aspects of the topic that you're discussing today, you can use the breakout rooms option to take and divide participants into different breakout rooms. And you can invite them all back to the main room at some point too, if that's appropriate for the type of discussion or lecture or study session that you're doing. Polls are also available. We have some canned polls, 2 option, 3 option, A, B, and C, or you can do custom polls fill in the blank, or multiple choice. All of those are available to you. On the actions menu, I'll let Lauren do this part. You can do thumbs up, thumbs down, happy, okay, confused, and my personal favorite, the confetti. Say great job. So that's a overview of the Meeting Spaces platform. It's very similar to the tutoring online classroom that your students are already using. We've improved it some. Obviously, the video and the audio is new, but we've also added some additional features like screen sharing and the polling capability to make it more of a true sort of collaborative experience. So at this point, I think we'd like to jump back out to the slide deck. Is that okay, Lauren?
Yeah, that's fine.
This deck, we'll make this information available to you afterwards, and there'll also be a recording. I'm going to flip through a bunch of these slides because they're just screenshots of things that we've already covered. Oh, let's talk about reporting.
Okay, I can take the lead back again. Thank you, John. So that's a demo of the experience if you were a user of Meeting Spaces. For those of you who are administrators at your campus or administrators of the Tutor.com service at your campus, if we turn Meeting Spaces on for your program, we do introduce a report into the client portal. For those of you familiar with our on-demand reports in the client portal, you can see here on this screen, there's a new tab that would open up for Meeting Spaces, and you would be able to run a report that shows you all of the meeting spaces that are happening for your campus and your program. So some of the details on the next slide of what we report on related to meeting spaces. We give you what meetings happened, who the meeting leader was, when that meeting happened. So there are most of the meeting spaces sessions happen in the online classroom that we just walked you through, but we do, as you're setting up a meeting, there is an option for you to even set up an appointment that happens elsewhere in person. So let's suppose, one of your tutors on campus set up a meeting space and added it to a student's calendar using this tool. They could actually choose to meet somewhere in person rather than use our virtual platform. Obviously, the moment we are in is that you're trying to move things virtually, but that is another thing that would appear on the reports. We show the start time and the length of those sessions, how many students and or staff accepted the request and attended the sessions so that you can see the percentage of who actually showed up. And then you would see a full list of the participants who were in the meeting. So you get quite a good analysis of, one, are people using meeting spaces, and two, how are they being used through these reports that would help you assess, is this platform working for our campus, our students, our faculty, etc. Okay, so at this point, we wanted this to be a fairly quick session given the last minute nature of us putting this together. And I think there's probably a lot of questions that have come through that we want to go through and address here. Additionally, if there's anything you want us to go back over because you would like a little deeper dive or to see the platform a little bit more and have John demo a little bit more, please feel free to use that question box and we will try to go back over it. Additionally, what we are going to ask is anyone who has the ability to determine if we can turn meeting spaces on for your campus, please write to us at clientsupport@tutor.com with any additional questions that you have, and also if you want meeting spaces turned on, a confirmation to add it to your program. We do need to verify that anybody who's asking us to turn it on is allowed to make decisions about Tutor.com. So we will be asking you to email us and give us that email authorization. Additionally, if you know who your account reps are, and boy, do I hope you do, you can just email them directly. But this will get to everybody on the team, and we will make sure that your team follows up. So with that, we're going to take some questions now. And I think I'll go through, John, and maybe kick some to you or answer some myself.
Sounds
okay,
good.
So starting at the top, One question is, how many hours students can use the Tutor.com for free per week? So I want to be really, really clear. We are giving away the platform meeting spaces for free to be used by your students, to be used by your local tutors, to be used by your instructors. And that platform can be used kind of at will. There's no, we're not putting any kind of restrictions on it at the moment. If your students are going to use Tutor.com and connect to our tutors, that is not going to be free. That will be the same that it is today, where usage is billable hours of time. So we are giving you a platform to use your staff and allow your students a place to meet virtually, and that will be free through the rest of 2020. But Tutor.com, where we have tutors that we are paying to be working with your students, that will remain the same. Okay, so to join a meeting space specific to a class, does the class have to be set up with Tutor.com embedded in the online course? So meeting spaces, when we make it available as a general offering on your program, can be set up so that anyone can access meetings as long as they get invited to them, even if they're not in the same class. But there was one option that John showed where you can just jump into a meeting space without having to set one up. That requires that you come from a link that is embedded in a course. So in the case of what we just demoed, John and I both came in from Blackboard, clicked Tutor.com. We were both in a course enrolled as it was Math 120. So because we both came over through Blackboard and Math 120, we would have been able to just jump into a session right then and there without having to set one up. We allow that kind of connection for people in the same classes, but if you don't have that link and come from the same link in the same class, you'll have to set up a meeting and invite people to participate in it. One question is, how many of the names populated in the invites box, sorry, I'm not asking that question correctly, but I think the question is, when you're setting up a meeting, how many people can you invite in the inbox or the invitees box? So meeting spaces can hold up to 50 different people, but you do have to invite the people to attend those meetings, right, in order for them to get an invitation. So when you go to that prompt to find your invitees and do a little search for anyone that's in there, they do have to be Tutor.com account holders. So if they're not a Tutor.com account holder, what you would want to do is ask them to please go into Tutor.com once and just kind of, you know, explore the service. They don't have to have a tutoring session, but they do have to be a known entity in Tutor.com. And the way that that happens is that they have to go into Tutor.com once and have an account created. Other than that, as long as they exist in Tutor.com, they will be searchable in that invitees box, and you can add them to sessions that you're going to be setting up. I saw a couple questions here that seemed to be that maybe the screen or the slides or something wasn't moving as quickly, so maybe something wasn't clear. Again, we're sending out a recording after this session. We will also be sending the slides after this session and some other kind of training and info materials. We're also going to make those available on the site for students as well. So there's going to be a lot of content that we'll make available so that you have to share with your students, your instructors, you know, your tutors as applicable if anything wasn't clear in the session today. One question here is, while testing, I created a test session, but I was not able to delete it. John, is there a way you can maybe demo how people modify and delete sessions that they've created while I keep going through questions here?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So the a meeting, you can't modify or cancel a meeting once it becomes launchable. So, and it becomes launchable 15 minutes before the start time. So you can see now I can't modify this meeting any longer. And in the modify area is where you would go to cancel it. So if you're past the 15-minute mark, meaning you're within 15 minutes of the meeting start time, you can't cancel it or modify it at that point. So that might be, Tatiana, that might be what happened in your case when you were trying to modify the meeting. But typically you would be able to, under any other circumstance, that is to say, if we created a meeting later in the day, I should be able to, because I'm not inside that 15-minute window, I can come in here and I could cancel that meeting at this point. So I'm guessing that that's probably what happened in your case when you were testing it. And if it wasn't, we should get together offline and troubleshoot that and figure out what went wrong.
Okay. Okay, next question. Do you have to invite students to these virtual meetings, or can this be a virtual drop-in tutoring situation where any student can join even though they are not invited? So the way that it works today, other than if you have that link embedded in courses and the students come from the same course, like both John and I came from Blackboard Math 120, we were able to just join the meeting space as he's showing up here because we can meet in the same class's open study room. If you want to do something similar for your tutoring operation and not have to set up appointments and invite students to it, there is the possibility, and we could partner with you on this, to have your LMS, your learning management team, create a tutoring course in your LMS, and then that would kind of function just like a course. If they came in through that tutoring course, any student could drop in at any time, and you could just have a tutor sitting in that open classroom, for example. So we would have to work with you to set up a tutoring course just to make that kind of notion a possibility. That would be the way to do it. Otherwise, you will have to invite students to a scheduled meeting space session. Okay, so when inviting students to a meeting where the addresses are populating, so just where John was setting up his create a meeting just then, and he pulled up one of our colleagues, Rochelle, our email address is pulled from our own contacts, the institution's contacts, or do we need to type in the full address? So it actually requires, again, that somebody already has a presence in Tutor.com, so they would need to at least connect to Tutor.com once to be a known entity. But from there, then you can search just by first name, as John is doing on the screen. You can search by their email address because we have email addresses in the system. The only reason they wouldn't populate is if we don't know that they exist, because they have to come over to Tutor.com at least once and become a user, have an account created in our environment, because our system doesn't know otherwise that they are a student, a valid person that can be accessing your platform. So emails will work, first names will work, last names will work. It's really a kind of a put in a couple letters and you should get a search field for anybody that has a Tutor.com account for your institution. How many people can join the meeting at the same time? Currently, meeting spaces can allow for up to 50 participants in one session. So let's suppose you did that, what I was talking about a minute ago, created a tutoring course and want to have just drop-in tutoring sessions and allow a lot of different students to come in because maybe you're covering something on linear equations for Math 120. You could tell students it's happening and have them come drop into that tutoring course, connect to the Tutor.com platform, and meet in that meeting space right then and there, up to 50 students. There's a couple questions here that I'm not clear on what they mean, and they may be technical issues that certain individuals were having. So what we'll do in those cases is have John probably follow up with you directly, or your client services manager, just to make sure things are working for you okay. One question, can students insert their questions or assignments in the whiteboard? John, you want to take that one?
Yes, they can, in a couple of different ways. They could, if their assignment is available as a Word doc, or they've taken a picture of it and it's a graphics file, or it's available as a PDF, they can share it using the share file link down here. They could also bring it into the whiteboard as a screenshot, like this right here is a screenshot of a figure from a textbook, but they could bring it in that way. Or they could also use the screen sharing option, in which case they would have their document open on their own device and they would screen share to share that document. And then lastly, they could use the, get out of that, they could use the import option, which would bring that document into the whiteboard.
Okay. One question, can we explore the schedule of various tutors again? John, would you maybe cover that a little bit more in detail here?
I can. Let's erase that and let's go into we'll look at the schedule. And so there is the ability. We have a management or an administrative portal that one or more individuals at your institution use to run reports and kind of oversee the program at your institution. In that management portal, we have the ability for you to add in staff, tutors, advisors, whatever they happen to be, and their schedules. And so you would add those individuals into our management portal. You would set up a schedule for them. You would identify what their role is, or if they're tutors, what subjects or courses are they tutoring. If they were, advisors, you would load that information into the system, and then your students can look at the name of this program we have is called, it's a demo program, so that's why it says demo blah 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 tutors and staff. Instead, in your case, it might say Lakeland Community College tutors and staff. And so it would list all of your tutors and their schedules, and students could come in here and see who was available when, and they could pick from that list and schedule a session with that particular tutor at that time, again in 15, 30, up to 90-minute meeting duration.
Okay. One question, there seems to be a lot of questions about how you invite people to join the meeting spaces. So at the moment, again, someone has to be a Tutor.com user, and so the only way for them to do that would be they have to come over to Tutor.com at least once. So they have to, if you have Blackboard or Brightspace or Canvas, for example, they just have to click into Tutor.com using that single sign-on link once, and that creates their presence in Tutor.com. I did see some questions here on how you can invite several people, say like 50 people, without having to search for everyone by name. So that is currently the process, is you do have to add people to the meeting. We are looking at adding kind of a bulk invite space in the very near future, but it isn't available currently. So as I said earlier in the session, this is a product that is evolving. It's been in beta for the past year, and so we are taking feedback and understanding use cases, and when those occur, we're updating and iterating on the platform to make it even more effective and better. So that's one thing we know we need to add is kind of the ability to invite people in mass in an easier way. So that's one of the things that'll be coming in the near future. Okay, so here you go. When you set the duration of a meeting, does the meeting end automatically at the end of the duration of the meeting that was preset, or will it keep going until the organizer ends it? The sessions will end when the last person leaves, basically. So for example, like on GoToWebinar right now, we scheduled an hour, but it's not going to shut us off at an hour. John or I have to actually shut down the meeting. So that is what our system does as well. So if somebody's in there and having a really productive session and they maybe only booked 45 minutes, they can stay in as long as they need to. Let's see. How do you take turns on the interface with each participant, or does everyone have access all the time? John, could you maybe just speak a little bit about the permissions, especially when the instructor role is in there, or the sort of creator of the meeting who has a different level of access?
Sure, yeah, there is the ability to set up, so the meeting that Lauren and I were just in, this meeting here, is really set up so that every participant is a peer in the interaction, but they can be set up so that they are instructor led or that there's a designated organizer or leader for the meeting. And when that's the case, when the meeting is set up that way according to the user's role, over here in the participants pane, there's an additional menu that pops up for each participant so that you'd be able to click on that participant. They would all be spectators essentially initially, but you could give individual participants control or the ability to interact on the whiteboard. You could also mute them if you wanted to, and so that there was only one speaker at a time as well. So this particular meeting we set it up in a peer-to-peer manner, but you can also set it up in a moderated manner where you can control who can speak and who can interact in the workspace area.
John, can you demo the screen sharing feature?
Sure. So the first time that you want to do it, you might have to add an extension. So when I clicked on Workspace, it might say add screen sharing extension the first time you try to use this. I already have it here in this particular browser, so I can start screen sharing. There's a brief blurb to make sure that you're not exposing any private or confidential information when you start the screen sharing. And then at this point, we could pick what we want to share, like this PowerPoint, for example. And now I have that shared in the screen and can scroll around and use that PowerPoint and share different slides in that PowerPoint. And so we could do that, with any application that you have open. It could be instead a browser window. Any application that you have open on your screen.
One question here, John, is there a sandbox option to use to set up some introductory material for our instructors and tutors to get familiar with? We do have some initial documentation that we're going to share out to people that attended this webinar, including the slides and some how it works guides, and we even have kind of a how it works video. So that kind of material we will be sharing out. If anybody wants sandbox access in advance, there is probably a way we can set you up for trial access on a non-production program if you would like to try it out before you decide you want to take it to prime time with your campus. One question, do the on-demand reports show how many invitees declined attending a meeting? We show how many people registered and how many showed up. So between the two, you can determine the ones that didn't show up. As a supervisor, we like to see how the sessions are going. Is there a way a supervisor can be in more than one tutoring session at a time? I'm not sure about that particular use case, John. Do you know if you can be in 2 concurrent sessions at once?
I don't know the answer to that either. I assume that you could be, but it's very much cookie based, where we track what session you're in and what you're doing and how you're participating in the session. So if we did support it, you would have to, at the very minimum, you'd have to do it in different browsers, or maybe private or incognito browsers, so that the cookies don't get mixed up. We'll have to, let's look into that, and we'll get back to you on that with like
Yeah,
a
we'll follow
more
up with
definitive
that.
answer. Yeah.
Okay. Does the interface use a mouse and or a stylus? John, you want to take that one?
Both are supported. Basically, I mean, it's built in HTML5, so essentially almost any browser on any platform is supported. So if you're using a tablet and you're using a stylus or your finger with a tablet, then you'll be able to draw in the whiteboard using that stylus or whatever device, whatever accessory your device supports.
Okay, I think we actually got through most of the questions here. I'm just kind of scanning through. If we didn't get through all these questions, we will follow up. I've already gotten a couple emails myself. And again, John, if you can bring up that last slide, just want to reiterate how we're going to be implementing this. We're not going to implement it unless we get authorization from your school. So the person that administers Tutor.com or one of your leader levels who has authority on things like contracts, we're not asking to do a contract here, but we are asking you to write to us at clientsupport@Tutor.com to confirm your authorization to add meeting spaces if you want it. Additionally, if you have any other questions or want some more material, you can write to us there as well. Our whole team mans this, so probably the person that will follow up is your client services manager for your account. But we are asking that we have some sort of email authorization to add it if you want to give it a try and see if it works for some of your use cases at your school. If there's any other questions now, I think John and I will wait online for maybe 5 more minutes, but otherwise we just want to thank everyone for participating today. We hope at least some of you find that this is maybe a solution that might work for some of your purposes. We recognize it may not work for everything, but we're hoping it can be one of the things that helps you as a stopgap measure during this challenging moment we're all in. So thank you again for attending and your interest.